I have had a love-hate relationship with the GMAT experience. It did, to a large extent, affect the quality of my life and mental state as well. I had to take a call that, I should put a rest to this sort of journey gracefully, because this is not the goal itself. This is just a means to the goal. This time when I applied with a test waiver, and test optional policy was offered by a lot of schools. I had heard about MBA Crystal Ball back in 2019 itself. I was fairly aware about the high conversion rate, high success rate of the candidates that work with you. There were a few really tough, meaningful questions that were asked. And it just showed that how upfront risks can be flagged. And I really liked about that. Yeah, thanks to your team's support, I got into all the universities I applied to. I received funding from all of them except NYU Stern.
What does it take to get into an elite business school? MBA Crystal Ball is a boutique admissions consulting firm. Each year, we help a select few applicants get into the world's best business schools. Here's one of our success stories to inspire and educate.
Hello and welcome to MBA Crystal Ball's YouTube channel. Today we have with us a multi-admit, multi-scholarship winning candidate, Mandovi. And to top it all, she did it with what many may perceive as handicaps. Let's hear how she did it. Welcome, Mandovi.
Thank you, Manish. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on board. So to begin with, could you tell our viewers a little about yourself, your qualifications?
Sure. So I did my undergrad from NIT Silchar. I pursued electronics and communication engineering. Right out of college, I joined a boutique consulting firm called Affine Analytics. Spent there for about 3 years, and then I joined PwC. So I'm currently a product manager at PwC, working on agentifying some of our use cases within the customer analytics sphere within the CT&I practice. That's a bit about me.
That sounds very interesting. Could you dive deep a bit, especially how you manage the transition from this boutique consulting into product management? What worked for you? What tips, suggestions?
Absolutely, yeah. That was a very interesting aspect of my life. Sure. So I was saying that I joined Affine as a data engineer. I was helping Expedia send out their marketing campaigns to their global customer base. When I shifted to PwC, when I joined PwC, it was largely again as a data engineering role. While I realized that while I enjoyed the implementation side of things, the engineering side of things, I also wanted to get a bigger picture of what am I doing, why am I doing. So really get the ownership of the end-to-end process of implementation.
Right.
So that's when, because I had seen and worked with a lot of product managers at Expedia, I had a sense of understanding what their role is all about, like how that role really sits in the intersection of tech and business, right? So it felt perfect for me. Right. So fortunately, within PwC at that point of time, we were going through a reorg. So we were under a platform called Products and Technology, and felt like the perfect time to sort of work with leadership to formalize the role pivot. Right. A lot of people commonly do this with an MBA, but it just worked out for me as an internal transition. My role still covers a lot of implementation things, which I like, but having the exposure into the business side of things is what was like the add-on.
Right. And, that kind of brings us to my next question, that you had managed this transition without an MBA. I think, you had also substantial years of experience. So when and why did you start thinking of an MBA yourself?
Oh, the why MBA, to be honest with you, Manish, I've had a long journey, right? So it hasn't been like a very recent, interest or calling that I should get an MBA, but it just goes back to pre-COVID. So it was about like 2019, 2019 is when I think I took my first GMAT. So around the time it happens, right? So when you graduate out of campus, 2-3 years into the work experience, some of us pursue MS. There's the other cohort that thinks about business degree. So I was back then. The reason for why MBA was because I had to get a master's. I wasn't interested in MS. I wasn't interested in MTech. So that leaves me with MBA, with just the B schools in India or B schools abroad. Absolutely. So basically that leaves me with MBA either in the Indian B schools, and there are very few schools in India that accept the GMAT. It was ISB and SB Gen, and then of course like the other international B schools. But I was a little early in the cohort because of barely like 3 years of work experience. So, and then COVID happened. I did not want to have an MBA experience, which is all about like peer learning, meeting people in person from diverse countries and backgrounds, etc. So I took a pause, and then of course, the why MBA had started to shape up then. So it was largely the career transition. It was the domain shift from engineering to product management. But since I was able to work it out internally within my company, I wasn't very convinced about taking a full-time MBA. So then again, the why MBA sort of evolved. I still knew that I wanted to get one, but I wasn't very convinced about the full-time experience. So maybe I would have considered like a part-time program, etc. But then I actually witnessed I witnessed a reorg very closely a couple of years ago. And then I saw a lot of really technically sound products being sunsetted for not having a very sound product market fit, not having commercial sustainability, etc. So, and I've witnessed that very closely. And that was when I realized that some of the products that really stayed relevant, did well, were the ones that knew how to shape their roadmap more from a commercial viability. And I could recognize certain gaps in my understanding in terms of my PM skill set, which I wanted to augment. And there was no better way than to think of a more formalized education.
Right. Got it. And what kind of experience do you have currently?
By the time I joined the program, I will have 9. I have 8.5 now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I know. Talk to us about your GMAT journey. How did that kind of evolve?
I have had a love-hate relationship with the GMAT experience. So I took my first GMAT in 2019. Since I was largely targeting international B schools, I did not have the 700 plus range that I was aiming for. And then I planned for another retake. So I did take coaching. The first time I took it was on my own, did not get a good score. The second time I took support from eGMAT. So I prepped using that material. It was good. But then somehow I think I was not able to reproduce the performance or sort of like replicate the execution side of things in a very timed environment, which is why I did not go and take my test in 2020 when I booked it. And that incident sort of like affected me a lot. Like it was just a test, and I've sort of been a good student academically, and I wasn't able to figure out why this is not happening. And so it did, to a large extent, affect the quality of my life and mental state as well. So I took the third attempt, though. I didn't give up in the second. I took a third attempt, and I still couldn't cross the 700 mark.
Right.
And that was when I had to sort of take a call. I had to take a call that, I should put a rest to this sort of journey gracefully, because this is not the goal itself. This is just a means to the goal. And if it is a means to the goal, there will be possibly a lot of other options, other avenues that I can, take. Ultimately, this time when I applied, I applied with a test waiver, and test optional policy was offered by a lot of schools.
Right.
So, yeah.
Got it. And then, once you had made this decision, why and how did you kind of discover MBA Crystal Ball? Why did you decide to work with us on your applications?
I had heard about MBA Crystal Ball back in 2019 itself. So I've known about your team.
Okay.
There was one of my friend who actually told me, so he was applying for MS, but I mean, he was fairly aware about the MBA application, MBA consultants available out there in the market. So he told me that you could consider MBA Crystal Ball whenever you're like ready for your for applying. There's this team that only takes people with high GMAT score. That's something he said. They take people with high GMAT score. They are a little I would say pricey, but they make sure they get in. So I was fairly aware about the high conversion rate, high success rate of the candidates that work with you. But then I wasn't actively considering applying then, right? So I was still thinking about a part-time program, etc. But this time when I was I chose to apply this year in R2, working with your team was very straightforward. I just knew about you. I was already part of your whole journey. I followed LinkedIn posts.
Right.
So I did come across a lot of candidates who've applied without a GMAT score, had a lot higher work X, and then got through. Some of those stories also helped me. And then I approached your team. We first connected over the email on the profile evaluation. There were a few really tough, meaningful questions that were asked. And it just showed that how upfront risks can be flagged. And I really liked about that thing, because being aware of the risks in the profile and then sort of like choosing to approach the whole journey changes the whole thing, right? So, yeah.
Got it. So tell us, where all did you apply? Where all did you interview? Anything from the interview experience that kind of stood out for you?
Sure. So my choice of schools were largely based on certain locations that I was targeting. And I was looking for schools which were a little more tech oriented. So all of the programs, all of the schools that I applied to had that flavor. And also, I had to be a little more reasonable in the choice of schools because not every school has a test optional policy. So some of the schools were outright out of my list. So I applied to two one-year programs. One is the Cornell Tech MBA. Another one is the NYU Stern Tech MBA. The other universities were University of Washington Foster, Kelley, Indiana Kelley, Georgia Tech Scheller, and Boston Questrom. Yeah.
Okay. Where all did you interview? Anything that kind of stood out from these interviews for you?
Sure. So I received interview invites and converts from all of them. So all 6 of them.
Right.
So I would say the interviews largely across the entire, cohort of schools were very conversational. They really wanted to understand my profile, what my post-MBA goals are, what is it that I want to contribute in the school. So largely I would say the theme or the nature of questions across all schools are very similar. But I would say not all of them were blind interviews. Some of the interviewers were, they knew my profile very well. They'd gone through my essays. From the questions, from the nature of the questions, it was very evident that they knew my profile. And some of the interviewers actually told that upfront, that we have gone through your profile, we know this. Whereas in certain other cases, they said that all we know is just your resume, details on your resume. So just feel free to bring out your stories. We've not gone through your essays. It was a mix of students, second-year students, and members from the admissions committee. So it was a mix of that. And then I would say just in Georgia Tech Scheller, the interviewing panel was actually a member from the admissions committee and a second-year student. So there were like 2 members. Yeah.
Got it.
And then for Cornell Tech and NYU Stern, and particularly more for Cornell Tech, the questions were more around really understanding, like, what's my tech background? How deep is my tech background? Right. So am I a candidate that's more suited for the traditional MBA, or do I really make sense for the tech? What have I done in tech? They asked me details about like what do I do, like day-to-day implementation. They went deep into that. What do I do to sort of like stay updated on the tech side? Those kind of things.
Got it. Very interesting. Taking a step back, when you mentioned about the waiver and the test optional, any suggestions or tips on how people can position it when they're applying with that kind of waiver?
Sure. So I think what I came across was that in a lot of schools there was an optional essay, right? So that was the space where I could call out that what's the limitation in my profile.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, so from a positioning perspective, how would you position it? Did you say that you took the GMAT, or you kind of talk about? How do you position it? Any suggestions or?
I'm back now.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Manish.
Yeah. So my question was, how do you position that in the optional essay or wherever you get the opportunity? Any sort of suggestions on that? Because a lot of people look for waivers as well.
Absolutely. So I think mainly the GMAT score is a I would say a validation of how the candidate would be able to perform in a very quant heavy first semester, right? So there's so many other numerical based subjects. So and that's there are alternatives to demonstrate that readiness. I took examples from my undergrad. So I pursued engineering, electronics and communication engineering. I called out some of the courses which were, probability, stats, some of the other subjects which were very quant heavy. I called those out, talked about my scores, my grades in those subjects. As a PM, my day-to-day role requires me to a lot of like support on the financial statement sort of affair. So I talked about those responsibilities. So I'm part of an analytics team. So day in and day out, crunching numbers, translating them into insights. So I kind of like talked about some of those insights, so which supported the readiness, called out scores, my JE percentile, etc. Those kind of things.
Right. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, now with the drum roll, where all did you get in? What kind of scholarships? Where are you headed?
So thanks to your team's support, I got into all the universities I applied to. I received funding from all of them except NYU Stern, Stern Tech. I have a full ride from Georgia Tech Scheller. And I'm headed to Scheller.
And how much does that come to, the Scheller funding?
So Scheller is a concept of GRA. So graduate assistantship, sort of like the stipend sort of covers the entire, I would say, tuition fee. And this is. No. So Scheller is a public school. It's a public university. So it's about 90K.
90K. Right.
Yes.
And Cornell also came back with, how much was that offer from Cornell Tech?
Yeah. So Cornell was 50K. Boston Questrom was 125K for 2 years. Foster was 80K for 2 years. And then the other one was Kelley was 60K for 2 years.
All right. Excellent. Any closing thoughts, any sort of suggestions, tips on people who are in similar situations, debating whether to go for it, not go for it?
Sure. So I think starting early really helps. Being mindful about the choice of the schools, right? So why they have chosen a particular set of schools, that really helps. Because in the course of my research about the schools, actually I heard this interesting thing from someone. They said that finding the school is almost as hard as or as equivalent to finding a partner. So we need to do our due diligence in doing the research about schools. So, I mean, there were a couple of universities which I eliminated from my list just because, I didn't feel connected, right? So there wasn't a lot of resources or available, the kind of inputs that I wanted to understand about the curriculum, the pedagogy, etc. It wasn't available. Maybe it could be the alumni, I would say, or current student ability to connect to them could be a little limited. So there are so many other things which kind of like really helped me eliminate a few and sort of include a few. For instance, Georgia Tech Scheller was an absolutely like a very transparent program. So while I was applying, while I was working, researching on the school, reaching out to alums, I could sense that, this is a school that has made everything available, like just everything's out there, right? So they have a podcast, they have an introspection or intersection podcast on there, which is their YouTube channel, which just laid out everything out there. So it became easy for me to write my essays. So doing a thorough research on the schools, that's very important because that shows the depth in terms of like, someone can write their essays very specifically. There can be a lot of specific inputs that can go in. And the same thing helps in the interviews as well. I would say for the interviews, just knowing who the interviewer is. So a lot of times when you receive the invite for the interview, so we do know who we'll be speaking to. Is it someone from the AdCom? Is it someone a second year student? So really knowing their profile and being able to like, that way we can I would say like align the stories that we will choose to speak during the interview accordingly. The interview aspect, yeah. So really understanding who we are connecting to on the interview, because when we receive the invite, it's also mentioned, right? Like, is it someone from the AdCom? Is it a second year student? So understanding their profile helps because it helps us bring out the stories that are aligned to them and we can talk about them, right? And we can establish the connect. So that's one. The other thing is not all interviewers would actually see the profile. They would have read the stories, right? So that's why, just making sure we highlight the stories we want to highlight. And the second thing would be, that's also a space to talk about some of the stories that did not get into the essays, right? So we have a lot of them, which we sort of like, because of the word count, we limit it to just a few of them, right? But that's an opportunity to sort of bring in the rest in a meaningful way.
Sure.
Yeah, largely that.
Excellent. Thanks so much for sharing your journey, Mandovi, and all the best with the MBA and your career ahead.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Manish. Thank you for your help. I think it has been possible only because of a lot of hard work from Avinash and support from him.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We hope you found this interview helpful. At MBA Crystal Ball, we've helped many applicants get into the elite business schools, often with scholarships. Reach out if you're looking for professional help with your applications. Good luck.